Let's get to another team that he did actually already win the treble with, and that was Barcelona during his days there, Pep Guardiola, because La Liga's title race really is heating up this season, particularly with what we saw in El Derby at the weekend, with Atleti beating their crosstown rivals Real Madrid, who had been pretty much perfect so far from what we'd seen. I suppose there were a few questions, but in terms of what you were looking at in the table. And then as for Barcelona, they had that epic comeback win against Celta when it looked as though things weren't going to go their way. Atleti have got to be talked about now, given that we did just see what we did against Real Madrid. Did you get asked at the beginning of the season to pick your winner for La Liga this season?
I don't remember. Let me sit on that fence. I don't remember if I gave an opinion. I'm sure I have. I think, maybe small bias towards Barcelona. I thought they were going to maybe hold it. Although, a lot of respect for Real Madrid, regardless of what happened in the derby against Real Madrid. It's still wide open. It's still only the race between those two, I feel. This is superb for Atleti. For a game like this, you get up and if you're gonna if you want to, a general, Cholo Simeone for a game like this will get anybody motivated. But what I've seen from Atleti ahead of that was quite poor. Matter of fact, I think you and I have talked about how poor it has been for Atleti to a certain degree. So, unless I see consistency from that, I think it's still between those two. A lot will depend, I think. Let's just wait and see when Vinny Jr. comes back, because that may solve some of the issues they've had. Other than the fact that I think, it's been said, and if it hasn't, Carlo Ancelotti took responsibility for that. I'm glad he did, because it was definitely on him.
So you're seeing it as a two-horse race right now, and it's easy to pick the pointers that we're seeing with each team, which obviously we'll always go into, where maybe they are falling short when it comes to Real Madrid and Barcelona. What have you seen so far that you've liked most from these two teams? And you can pick whichever team you want to start with.
I haven't seen anything special from the both sides just yet, because I'm still not sure I understand Xavi and the way of playing. I think I expected something different, maybe something a little bit more expensive, maybe something where the players are freer to do things, and maybe there's too much of us thinking that Barcelona will ever be what it was when Xavi and Iniesta were out there and Pep Guardiola was the manager. That's a big ask, I suppose. But I think if I look at Barcelona, let's face it, they were lucky. Robert Lewandowski put them on their back. And this is, by the way, Robert Lewandowski, who has been criticized, rightfully so, who has been quietly doing his job, but maybe not in the way that everybody expected, who has struggled for his country, for Poland as well. And that continues to be an issue. Poland has a new manager that has to deal with Robert Lewandowski once again. He was controversially came out with some of the statement about Fernando Santos, who got let go after 5-6 games. Famous manager. So not all is great in his world, but to be fair, I think slowly but surely we're getting to see Robert Lewandowski. And of course, I think he's critical. Because just as you, I'm sure, going to ask me about number 9 for Real Madrid and lack of the number 9, without Robert Lewandowski, we could be talking about, without good Robert Lewandowski, Barcelona has the same issues.
It's okay. So let's go there. Let's go to Real Madrid. And the problem here, playing Jude Bellingham where they did at the weekend, obviously didn't work for them. And it can't all come down to him as well, playing out of position. What are they going to do?
Just wait for Vinny Jr. Obviously, he's not a number 9, but I think he's going to help immensely, because it's a threat that everybody has to prepare for. Right now, they don't. Right? The job playing against Real Madrid is a little bit easier. At least it was for Cholo. And look, they were surprised early in the first half and early in the second half. In between, there was a time where when it was 2-1 that I thought Real Madrid is going to come back. But I think the biggest thing right now is for Ancelotti not to meddle with his lineup. Okay, the biggest point that's been made so far since the game, because we're late here, we got to see everybody's opinion, was, of course, that perhaps Modric and Toni Kroos should not be playing together anymore in the big matches. That's a fair point. My bigger point was, why change the formation? Here's your team. You've came up with this diamond midfield that has got you 6 wins, And, comes the biggest game of the season so far, because it has been the biggest game of the season for Real Madrid. And, forget the number 9, but you change the system completely. That to me was a bigger issue than anything else. So stay with what got you there, Mr. Ancelotti, and that will be the last time I'll give you an input, because, of course, you know the game 10 times better than I do. But I was very, very surprised, because that's unlike Carlo Ancelotti. He keeps it simple, doesn't he? Every so often he comes up with something like that, which all of us are looking like, why? Where'd this come from? And I think he's asked himself that question, because I wasn't surprised that he took it up on himself. That's not the first time, but I think he truly knew that this wasn't a setup. So look, they're going to continue to look for the number 9. They're going to wait for Kylian Mbappe, who, again, it's not a true number 9, but I think will give you some special advantage in terms of how to play the front 2 or 3, because I'm still sure that they at some stage they're going to go back to a 4-3-3.
And just lastly, before we move on from La Liga, a couple of weeks ago you were talking about Xabi Alonso. Obviously it's been well documented how well he's doing at Leverkusen. A report came out that he could be at Real Madrid sooner than people were maybe expecting. It's been put to Ancelotti. He's actually said that he hopes Xabi Alonso, Raul, or Arbeloa, be very diplomatic here, are Real Madrid managers one day. So there you go, Janusz. It looks as though you're ahead of the game a little bit on that Xabi Alonso chat.
Well, it makes sense. Succession is very, very important, and the best teams and best companies in the world do that ahead of time, right? We often talk about Brighton. They're a perfect example, because I am sure they already know that, because another person that I've talked about, Roberto De Zerbi, 2 of the hottest managers in Europe at the moment, and they know that they will lose him very, very soon. But they had that succession in mind when Graham Potter left, and same with Real Madrid. The one thing that I'll give them, they do look ahead, and they've had the Galacticos. Of course, they have the magic and the aura of this club that it perhaps easier for players and managers to be convinced. I don't think you have to convince them, but Xabi Alonso would make sense. He's very, very young, but already showing how versatile and how balanced that Bayer Leverkusen team is so far. So it makes sense right now, especially for a player that's played for Real Madrid as well. So the world belongs to young people, I suppose, and young managers. So it makes a lot of sense. And I think they know it's going to happen sooner rather than later. And I would give Xabi Alonso, I would put him ahead of Raul.